N'Kosi Perry has just completed a huge 3rd and 8 to Brevin Jordan. Miami's alive. Mark Pope almost with a reception inside the 5 with 2:25 left to play. What a game at the Cheez-It Bowl. And we welcome you all in as we'll watch the final 2:25 together here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. With a 5:30 kickoff, I estimated 9 o'clock to be a good time for a live stream. Here we are, 2nd and 10, 2:25 left. Miami trails 37-34 at their own 48. So much to talk about. Tons of notes. Here we go. Nice tackle by Trey Sterling. Has had an exceptional game for Oklahoma State. Comes up with a big tackle there. We're down to a 3rd down. N'Kosi Perry playing some good football tonight. Forget the stat line with all the drops. He's been really good. Oklahoma State getting too conservative in the final 5 minutes, but Miami has played an exceptional game in many ways without the Eric King. So thumbs up to N'Kosi Perry tonight. Here we go, 3rd and 9. And they have a pass breakup. Brevin Jordan, I would have to see the replay to see whether he should have caught that pass. Wasn't the best pass in the world. It was behind him. It might have been broken up. Would love to see a replay on that one. All right, this could be the game with Miami with only 1 timeout. It pretty much is the game. 1:41 left. Canes at midfield. Nice call, but it didn't work. Good tackle there by number 20. Rodriguez flagged him down. Huge play. $1:36 left. Miami trails by 3. And Oklahoma State takes over. You make that call if you're Red Lashley and you're with the wide receiver screen, you're determining that he's going to be fast enough, that he's going to be able to pick up the 1st down. And it was well blocked. It was well executed, but you didn't get the separation. So Oklahoma State's going to run a play here on 1st down with 1:36 left. And that's all they need to do. Yeah, it just doesn't add up with 1 timeout left. Miami stops it with 1:30. They should have stopped the clock a long time ago. I heard the whistle like 8 seconds ago. So 1:27 left on the clock. This is the last time the Canes can stop it. There you see your player of the game, Spencer Sanders. 27 of 40 for 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Pretty much played a great, exceptional first quarter. And then Miami was the better team for the middle portion of the game. But Oklahoma State, after Miami basically caught them, at least at 21-19. We were within 2. Oklahoma State a little bit better here in the 4th quarter. So interesting game, competitive game, entertaining game. And we'll see what you guys have for us. I'll go through my notes because this is pretty much the end of the game. Miami will fall to 8-3 on the season. Guess they didn't really need to play the season. I said they'd go 8-3. 8-3 on the season. Oklahoma State will improve to 8-3 on the season. And considering the rankings right now at 21-18, you would think that the Canes would barely finish in the top 25. And Oklahoma State's going to improve their ranking a little bit in the final rankings if you guys care about that. I do, but not everybody does care about the final rankings. Really good game. There you see this Brennan Presley for Oklahoma State had barely touched the ball this season, the entire season. 6 catches, 118 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So I'll remind everyone, if you shop Amazon during the holiday season here with returns and so forth, grab the link in the description section below. Please help us build the channel by grabbing that link and using it. It's the same shopping experience. Now I will post the call-in number at 860-325-3687. That's 860-325-3687. Let's talk Miami and Oklahoma State. Let's see what you guys have in the chat. George? I guarantee the Miami win, but nobody listen. Just wait and see. Did I read that wrong? Mike Williams, we suck. Frauds. Mike, I would say it's disappointing to lose a bowl game. I think they're important. I think they're meaningful. You're taking on a team that's on the same tier, that's on the same plane as you. Nationally. So I think they're important. It's a big barometer. More people watched this game tonight, most likely, than any other Miami game this season. Even the Clemson game had competition. So it's a big deal. It's important. I think it is. I will be the guy that will argue for the bowl games being important, and they're not exhibitions. But Mike, understand what was accomplished this season. You got De'Ara King. Hopefully he's going to be fine. He should be fine. We have no idea exactly what the injury is other than it being a leg injury. But he should be fine. He should be good to go for next season. You got him back, and you've got a positive vibe from this season. At least Miami didn't go out, as it appeared it might be, and get blown out by a top 15 to 20 team in the country like they did against North Carolina. At least they showed up and they played. They showed up, they played, they fought, they came from behind a couple times and kept it close without their leader. Without their leader, their starting quarterback, one of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football. So understand that. Mike, I know you're frustrated. Know you're sick of losing bowl games almost every year. Let's see. This will be 4 consecutive bowl losses. Luke Walker, 2020 Cheez-It Bowl runner-up. Luke is just trying to lift your spirits. Not being sarcastic at all. Just trying to lift everybody's spirits here in the chat. And, of course, if we have Oklahoma State fans here in the chat, we would love to hear from you as well. Here we go. The call will start at the beat. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hurricane Logan, man. What's up, brother?
There he is. There he is. How you doing tonight besides this business that we just watched?
Oh, man. It's a mixture of emotions. Honestly, at the end of the day, I'm disappointed because at one point in the game, it was 21-0, and it goes into preparation and something that we've lacked with our defense. I think the defense adjusted good, which we didn't do against North Carolina, but the preparation was just so bad. And then, when King went down, I literally almost went into tears because of his story, and it just hurt to see him go down. I hated it.
Sure.
But Nkosi came in, and he was firing on all cylinders. Nkosi looked great. And for any Miami fan, because a lot of Miami fans are haters on Nkosi, he looked good, man. And a lot of guys dropped his balls, especially deep balls. Big-time deep balls, big-time first downs, big-time possible touchdowns. Those were dropped.
Mark Pope, D. Wiggins. Yep.
Yeah, it's really, man, tonight is disappointing, especially with how our bowl record has been. The preparation on defense, if our defense would have came out just more prepared, because they've passed the ball I don't know how many times in a row, and it's just like, okay, like we all thought they were going to run the ball or maybe have a balanced attack, but just there was no adjustment. There was no adjustment.
Yeah, I was impressed with Nkosi Perry. I don't even know what his stat line was, but he suffered a ton of drops. They had a big one, the final possession there, where Brevin Jordan dropped the ball on a 3rd and 9 across the middle.
Yeah, Mr. NFL ready guy, right?
Yeah, that's not good to see, especially when you need it. It's one thing to have a drop there on the second drive of the game, but when you're down by 3 points and you're at midfield and driving, and that's when you need him to come through. And it wasn't a difficult catch. It was right there.
Yeah, it really wasn't. Honestly, if you're a college player and you're really good, or you have high expectations as a college player, or if you're in the NFL and you get paid to do it, if the ball hits you in the hands, you got to catch it. Period. Period.
You know, guys like Cam Harris made really good catches. That catch he made in the last 5 minutes, that was an exceptional catch.
Seemed like they had better hands than our receivers.
Yeah, he's a running back, and he's got 2 guys like hanging on him, and he makes that catch.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's just, I don't know, man. Tonight, like, I'm not going to hang my head as a fan. I think it's just reality at this point. Our defense adjusted, which they didn't do against North Carolina, but going down 21-0 is what hurt us. We only lost by 3, and it wasn't a pretty game. I think it was badly officiated. A lot of pro sports medias tweeted how bad the officiating was. Most of them said that it was worse than the Duke game when we had the 8 lateral win, which was bad officiating on both parts.
Yeah.
You know, even on the Miami side, it was bad. We got some calls of it. We got lucky on. But I definitely give credit to Perry. There's a lot of Perry haters. I'm kind of one of them. I don't think Perry is a starter on this team, especially after what he did with the kicker's girlfriend. But I think Perry played very, very well in this game, and the receivers did not help him out to sit there and throw a guy who hasn't played much this season, to throw him in a bowl game, a big-time game, to win the game, and just drop balls and not help him out. That's bottom line.
Yeah, and it's a guy, because of being on the second team, isn't getting a lot of first-team reps. I don't know what that breakdown is for every team. But, yeah, he's not getting the reps in practice that that King's getting. And for him to play that well, I thought he played really well. He didn't make any major mistakes. Not every pass was perfect, but most of them were.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there were a lot of drives that I was sitting there saying, please don't throw a pick. Please don't throw a pick. And he did not do that. So, you know, all those plays that I was begging for no picks, it was drops. And that's on our receivers, man. Our receivers got to step up. And our receivers, honestly, have been a disappointment all year. Harley sort of stepped up, and then he fumbled a punt and gave Oklahoma State the ball. I mean, right now, when you evaluate this game, it's a mixture of bad preparation, probably on defense, but the problem is drop balls and penalties, period. Corey Couch is our best coverage guy, but because of how young he is, there's a lot of penalties that were just huge, huge penalties. You convert on third down because of a PI. That's a big deal. And it probably wasn't the best call, and that's why I'm saying it's both officiating and, you know, young guys coming in. But that goes into the older guys that opt out. When you sit there and opt out and you have a linebacker that has to come in and take a defensive end spot, you should feel bad to sit there and see that spot struggle as you're sitting out of a game. I don't know how anyone can sit there and opt out of a game and see a linebacker have to come in as a defensive end and still struggle.
Yeah. And
I don't understand that, man. I'm just being honest, Mark. I'm not a big fan. I'm sure you know Lou's opinion on it too. I don't like it. I don't like opting out. I think the transfer portal is cancer. It ruins kids' college careers, even in the study aspect and not the athletic aspect. It's toxic, man. The transfer portal is toxic. There's like 500 kids, 500 plus in the transfer portal, and they don't have a guarantee to go to university now. That's a big deal.
And the overestimation of most of those student athletes that go into the transfer portal about their realistic expectation of playing in the NFL, I'm sure, is way overblown.
Exactly. 100% correct. The drops were disappointing tonight, man. We had some big-time drops.
I would say that, and drop passes have plagued you at different times during the year and in the last few years. The thing I will say that if I watch these two teams play, and if you're going to ask me who the better team is, I'm going to say that I believe that they're very similar teams, not in their strengths and weaknesses, but when you add it all up, they're roughly in that same category. You know, they're one of the They're two of the 15 to 25 best teams in the country. But I do think that Miami, exactly to your point a few minutes ago, Oklahoma State they pretty much didn't play some phenomenal game. And this is a point that I made the other day with the Wholesome one, is that if you look at the better opponents on Oklahoma State's schedule, Oklahoma State pretty much showed up and played the same game every time. They never got blown out. They stayed close with every game. Texas game, TCU game, Iowa State game, Tulsa game, all the teams in their area with light talent, they played a close game. They pretty much show up and do their job. They didn't make the big mistakes. You mentioned all the big mistakes. Those were on the Miami side. The Mike Harley muffed punt, the mesh point misexchange between Chaney and Perry. That was a big play that gave them the ball on your side of the field that led to a score. Exactly. Miami athletically is a little bit better than Oklahoma State.
Definitely. I think if this game were to be played 3 more times, we might win 3 more of those. But it doesn't matter because
especially with your
quarterback. They are now.
Yeah. Especially with your quarterback.
What happened with King is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I hope King is okay. I hate seeing that, man. His story, I don't know how much you follow King and how he came up, but that's heartbreaking. And I hope he's okay, and I hope he's going to come back. And from what I've heard, he'll be all right in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think so. We'll know more in the next few days.
But to answer Miami Flo's question, how do we suck? We lost by 3 with our backup quarterback. Well, the reason I wouldn't say we suck because, like, that's kind of harsh, on college kids. I don't want to ever sit there and be a grown adult and say that about kids that I'm a fan of.
Yeah.
But we were down 21-0 practically in the first quarter, and they had almost 200 yards in the first. They passed the ball for like 15 times straight, and we had no answer for it. So it's not so much that the kids suck. Someone needs to step up and say something and make a play like Ed Reed did against FSU when he said he was hurt, whatever. There's a coach that needs to step up and make an adjustment. When you can sit there and complete 15-plus straight passes and still drive on a defense and score, we suck. That's the honest bottom line. When you have no answer for something so simple, yeah, I mean, that is what it is.
Rhett Lashley's really good at what he does, but Peanut brings up a situation here in the live chat that I've asked about a number of times this season. He says, why didn't we keep feeding the tight ends? I would think that they would have more sets where they would have Mallory and Jordan on the field at the same time. I would think that that would be a nightmare for the defense to try to defend both of those guys.
I completely agree. I completely agree with your assessment of that and his comment. But at the same time, when we had to convert, Brevin Jordan had the hands in his balls, and he didn't catch it. He did not catch it.
Absolutely.
He had the ball in his hands, and he didn't catch it.
Absolutely. But
he did not catch it, man. He's a senior, and he's debating on making a decision. Look, man, you're in the college football league, and you didn't catch a big game ball. What is your assessment on you going to the pros now? Because it's going to look like Trajan Bandy and Jared Willis, who are all not even on a practice squad anymore.
Well, if you look at it that way, Brevin Jordan's just too big, fast, and talented to have any real concerns about his NFL prospects. A team's not going to like.
That's definitely a prospect, but you got to remain healthy, and then you got to make plays too. 4 quarter games are where your seniors and your leaders step up. 4th quarter games are where your leaders and your seniors step up, and no one stepped up. No one stepped up. And the one guy who probably could have stepped up was out of the game on crutches. And I'm not going to lie. Like, one thing I'll acknowledge right away, I'll give credit to Manny Diaz. He was on the sidelines. He was over the sidelines, like firing on the refs and the defense for missing plays, and missing calls. It's good to see, but there's so much more to this game that happened. We're better than Oklahoma State. We are better than Oklahoma State. We are. But we got out-coached and outplayed. And you know why I say that? Because we all expected more run-heavy than pass, but we had no answer for the first 15 straight passes. They scored. Their first 2 drives were all passes, and they scored. We were down 21-0 at one point. We had no answer. Our defense had no answer. Big shout out to our defense for having an answer, but it was too late. It was too late. It's a bowl game. This isn't a game 1. This is a bowl game. If your team is not prepped and your coaches are not seasoned enough to sit there and prep for a bowl game, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Hey, Hurricane, I'm going to take some of these calls.
To sit there and say that our defensive staff needs to get fired, but something needs to get evaluated, right? Don't you agree?
Absolutely. Everybody should be evaluated. There's no question about that. Hurricane, I'm going to take some of these calls coming in.
Yes, thanks for having me, Mark.
Appreciate it, man.
Night,
have a good night. All right. Everybody that was calling during Hurricane Logan's call, please call me back. 860-325-3687. You see the number at the bottom of the screen. I appreciate the super chats coming in as well. I will get to them as soon as we can get to them in the live chat. Need better receivers. You've got some good ones. There are some great ones, though, in college football, and you haven't had one of those guys in a while. I guess Amon Richards had the chance to be. I don't believe that he was, but he had the opportunity and the ceiling to be one. Very good receivers for Miami, but when you look around college football to Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, and others, then you see some great receivers. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line? Hello?
I love the show.
Appreciate that. I'm sorry, I missed the beginning of the call. Who's on the line, sir?
My name is Frank Crawford, man.
Hey, Frank.
Hello?
Hey, Frank, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go right ahead, sir.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say I love the show. I just want to say, man, I'm the biggest Hurricane fan out there is. I watch you host so I love everybody that do podcasts on the Miami Hurricanes. And I would just like to say, man, Miami's just not good enough. The players are not good enough. I trust Manny. I trust Manny, what Manny is doing. The guys are just not good enough, man. Our size is not good enough. We got Bubba Bolden, not good enough. Even the guys that left, Quincy Shea, it's not good enough. If you look at the way that we played over this last year, those guys, sometimes they didn't show up. The guys that everybody's patting on the back, a lot of these guys are not good enough to stay in the system. They're just not good enough. Our class we have coming in should be an upgrade to a lot of players. A lot of guys should pay back their scholarship money. To me, that's the way I see it right now. Guys are not showing up.
So, Frank, when you say... Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the call. I just want to clarify something. So when you say not good enough, obviously you're looking to win, compete for championships, to get into the playoff, to win the ACC, do those things. Who would you assess when you brush through the offense and the defense? Who would you assess to be good enough?
I think Brevin Jordan with another good system would be good enough. However, I think a lot of guys patted Derek King on the back. I think a lot of times guys underthrew a lot of guys, man. A lot of guys make it play with 2 steps ahead of defenders. Underthrew footballs. Bottom line, a lot of guys cry about the coach period. However, the coach deserved a shot at this new system, just like Derek King came into a new system. The system that he has been playing under, when he transferred out of Houston, he was not good enough to play in the system that was set before him. That 50 touchdown season, that was only money. You know what I'm saying? Now, I can't take anything. Good guy, good, solid football player. But if Miami want to go to the next level, got to recruit better, got to trust the system. And we want to fire the coaches, but of course we know the financial ramifications are bad, and we know that some of these guys, man, aren't good enough. They should stay in the year. A lot of guys are leaving to the NFL to be 5th and 6th wrong draft choices. Shame on them, man. Shame on them. They're hurting the program. The kids are hurting the program. Some don't like to say that the coaches should blame the kids. Now, Mark Rick, he had a point. With man, no, he doesn't have a point, man. These guys are not showing up. They're not showing up. And, man, I don't crying about the spread offense. We got the spread. We get a quarterback to throw the ball to lift up the field. Bottom line. So thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
Appreciate that, Frank. You have a good night. Oh, just missed a couple calls. So call me right back, 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. All right, I will get to the super chats. I appreciate those so much. Man, I got a ton of notes if you want to hear from me and my analysis of the game, but I want to hear mostly from you because your opinion is more important than mine in this, you Canes fans. And we're on the Miami channel after a game against Oklahoma State, so certainly if you like college football, regardless of your team, chime on in. Like a Luke Walker, of course. Give us one more shot. I don't know what happened there. Here we go. Finally. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Hey, it's Mark.
Hey, what's going on?
Not too much. Who's this?
I just want to, what's going on? Yeah, I just want to keep it like real simple and short.
Yep.
Because I've read a lot of the comments and stuff like that about like the fans figuring out what the issue is.
Yeah.
Like as far as for me, I think the problem is like Manny Diaz. You know what I'm saying? Like I just feel like he's not ready to be the head coach. And just as far as the development of the team, it's not there. Like there's no development. Nobody's getting better. It's like as time go on, like the players they digress rather than not get better. If you understand what I mean.
Well, I think you take a big risk when you elevate somebody who's never been a head coach at really any level in this situation. So I think Manny Diaz, I think he has the makings of a good head coach, but yes, he's making mistakes and we're seeing it and he's doing it on the clock. So he hasn't had the luxury of, going to Temple. He was going to be the Temple head coach. He should be the Temple head coach right now. He had taken that job, and that would have been a great learning experience for him.
Exactly. And the thing I got to say about the defense, like with the defense, a lot of people like to put the blame on Blake Baker, but in all reality, that's Manny Diaz's defense. Even when he was the defensive coordinator, like Miami was a second half adjustable team. In the first half, we was always getting like blown out, or the offense we played used to always throw up a score and other stuff like that. But we always adjusted second half, and that's exactly what happened today. So, to me, I feel like a lot of people like to put the blame on Blake Baker, and I'm one of them. But just looking at it and just kind of like analyzing what's really going on, I feel like that's Manny Diaz running the defense. So that's all I called to say. So thank you.
Appreciate that call. Have a good night.
No problem. Yeah.
So, in that situation in which you've got a head coach who specializes on one side of the ball and has really made his resume on building one side of the football, like when Will Muschamp was at Florida and then South Carolina, defensive guy through and through. Then you always have that issue with you hire a defensive coordinator. Is that head coach who owns the defense, especially in Manny Diaz's situation where he owned the defense at the same school, then it becomes possibly an issue. If you're hiring a defensive coordinator, but you as the head coach still want to run the defense, then you're basically just hiring an assistant manager under you, but you're still running the defense. Or you're going to say, you know what, I am now the head coach. I'm hiring a defensive coordinator that I can trust to run the defense. I don't know what the relationship is between Baker and Diaz, but that communication needs to be made, and there needs to be a clarification of roles. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, who's on the line?
Hello, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you turn down the volume in the background, please?
Yeah, I'm having I'll tell you what, I'll have to call you right back. I'll get that taken care of.
Yeah, call me back. Thank you. Yeah, we can't hear you. We hear me 5 seconds later. So that's not good. All right, a lot of railing against the wide receivers. They dropped passes tonight. So everybody makes mistakes on the field. Offensive linemen miss blocks. They miss assignments for blocks. Quarterbacks miss throws. They miss reads. Wide receivers drop passes. They run routes incorrectly. They read the zone coverage incorrectly and therefore break off routes incorrectly. Running backs miss holes. We could go on and on. So everybody makes mistakes. Now, when a wide receiver or a receiver drops the football, that is the most obvious and glaring mistake that can be made on a field. So let's understand that they're out in the open space. And because all of us have been outside in the backyard throwing and catching footballs, I think watching a accomplished wide receiver at this level drop passes just makes us all cringe. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Michael Sears. Mark, how are you tonight?
Hey, Michael. I'm doing just fine. I appreciate you calling. What's up?
Just calling in. Coming in over after watching the game, we're looking at it and just kind of amazed at how our fans are unrealistic when they talk about expectations. But tonight was all about the wide receiver drops in big moments and the a lot of horrible pass interference calls when you look at it. I know that the game started off extremely slow for us, and we were down 21 before they knew it, and I didn't even get to watch the beginning of the game, but by the time I got there with it, it was 21 and we scored the second. But I think that a lot of times that everybody wants all these microwave coaches and the great coaches that they look to struggled early on as well, and everybody keeps saying don't utilize that format, but you have to look at that format when you think about two of the greatest coaches that are out there now, when you talk about Dabo and Saban, and both of those programs are laughing stocks of both of those leagues when they took over. So I think we just have to get a little patience. And Manny's going to make the changes that's needed because he's shown that with the offense for this year. And you're losing Derek King, which the whole offense rotated around. And we didn't have our two starting defensive ends that have played the entire season. And then just opted out right before the bowl game. So wasn't it like they had an adjustment? I believe our starting linebacker had the most snaps at the defensive end position this year. For this game, I mean. So.
Well, I would say that the two teams had personnel losses that were pretty even going into the game, with you guys losing the two defensive ends that are two of the best in the ACC. They were missing their starting running back, Chuba Hubbard, who's one of the top 5 running backs in the nation. Tylan Wallace decided to opt back in. He played the first half and for some strange reason did not suit up for the second half. After he had a decent first half, he caught 5 or 6 passes. And then they also had, I don't remember, I did not look into this, but it was mentioned during the broadcast early that Oklahoma State had another 2 players who opted out. I don't know. I did not look in to see who they were. But then once you lost Derek King, then you certainly were at a disadvantage, no doubt.
Yeah. And I just think about it, too, Mark. You look at it, these are also going to be 2 of the highest drafted players that opted out right before it. And, again, didn't have the option for it. I believe Chuba Hubbard opted out maybe about with 3 or 4 games left in the regular season. So they had some adjustment period with it.
Yes.
But I just think that, from looking at it, they started off really slow. From just, like I said, I was out and about, and when I turned the TV on, I couldn't believe it was already 21-0, but we had actually scored a touchdown. But I just think that if people have to really be more realistic and understand that the stuff and the great things that we did back in 2001, which is 19, going to be 20 years ago and a couple of days ago, football is not on that same landscape, and neither is Miami. And you have to look at the money and the time and where we're at in the programs. We're going to have to build it up, and you have to have consistency, and you have to give somebody an opportunity to grow within the job, or you're going to continue to be in the same position because Miami financially cannot compete with the other top 10 teams of the nation. I mean, they're like multi-billion dollar enterprises compared to what Miami's budget is. When you look at the Notre Dame, the Alabama, the Ohio State, and you talk about the revenue that they have. I mean, people really don't understand when you look at that from that perspective of Miami. And guys are not going to come to just coach at Miami because it's Miami when they can make more money as an assistant coach or as the specialist like the Charlie Strongs and the rest of the things they have at Alabama that are making more than our assistant coaches. So, but I just think that we're moving in the right direction, and I think the younger receivers are going to get an opportunity to play better. And guys had opportunities to make plays tonight, and they didn't make plays, and that's why we lost the game when it came down to the stretch. I mean, because N'Kosi Perry played lights out and put the ball right in their hands, and I mean, he actually threw the ball better than Derek had been doing throughout the year. When you talk about his ball placement, it was right in their hands, and it's just flat out drops. And that's all across the board. Wide receivers and Brevin Jordan on that 3rd and 9 play as well. It hit him right in the hands, and he dropped it. So, you can ask for much more out of Kobe tonight, but I'm just proud of the Hurricanes, and they showed fight, and they didn't get beat, 60-something to 20 like in the North Carolina game. And they just came up short because Oklahoma State made a few more plays earlier on in the game than UM did.
All right, very good. Good assessment of the game. It sounds like you're pretty optimistic about where the program's headed, though.
Yeah, I am optimistic with it because I still, as much as you have the fan, you have to also become rational when you're looking at these types of things, and you have to understand that you have to grow to get there. And I think people also forget that we're just coming on to where we're getting our full allotment of scholarships as well, because that was just tallying off or just starting to begin towards Manny's first year. So we're just looking at trying to get a full roster of players as well, and people don't understand how much that hurts a team when you don't have that full allotment of scholarship players to develop and push guys. So now they're walk-ons that are trying to push him, and guys know they have walk-ons behind them, so they don't have to compete for anything. But now it's been to that point where you're having depth and you're having individuals actually have to push the starter. So I just think they're going to be better moving forward. And I think Manny will make another change on defense, just firing Blake Baker or adjusting the system to go forward. But I really think that we're on the right direction, and people forget how bad it was last year with the 6 and 7 and the time before that. Everybody wants to try and jump across and do the time space, jumping again, things about early 2000s, and then even some of the teams that they like to reference as a Hurricane fan, the teams with Ja'Cory Harris and the rest of those guys. I mean, they did the same thing. The only thing of difference with them is they might win one of those big games. Like, again, they beat one of the worst Ohio State football teams ever. And I know you're an Ohio State guy, Mark, because I watch your show all the time with it. But they beat that team with it, but it still wasn't anything outrageous about it. And they beat a couple of those Florida teams, but it wasn't the Tim Tebow Florida. It was, the Florida when they weren't, super as far as that's concerned. So, I mean, even the teams that they like to compare them to, looking at it from a Hurricanes fan perspective, it's really no different than that. And, everybody, kind of always wants to remember the great stuff and not necessarily the bad things that happen with all the Shannons. And, I know you have Holtzman on quite a bit, and I watch a lot of his shows, and he loves Cristobal. But I say, when you look at Cristobal, he's had some horrible losses that would have had them want to fire Cristobal if he was at UM with some of the losses he had out there at Oregon.
Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you so much for chiming in. We're going to get to some other folks here. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, Mark. I'll tune in. Thank you.
Before anybody else calls in, and I'm getting a ton of phone calls, I want to be able to acknowledge these super chats that have come in. So hang on just a second. I apologize to the person calling in right now. I want to be able to acknowledge the super chat here. And the issue that we have is that the service that I use here has advanced way past the super chats. So I want to look these up here. Hang on just a second. I want to be able to look up these super chats and acknowledge who's contributed to the show tonight. And I can't bring those onto the screen.
Today, I decided to forgive you.
So good crowd coming in here. I appreciate everybody on board. Be patient. Let me see if I can find these. If I can't, I believe one came in from Ronan, and I believe one came in from Chugmo Beer, but I can't go back in the chat and look at them. So my apologies. I like to get those super chat contributions to the screen, but sometimes the sometimes the there we go. Sometimes the software that I use advances past the super chats, and I can't go back and get them. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's George.
Hey, George. Did you see who gave me super chats? I like to be able to acknowledge those people, and I can't find them.
Well, they know who they are.
I know they know who they are, but I like to acknowledge them. I think it was Ronan and Chugmo Beer. Those are my guesses. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, they've been there all night. Can you acknowledge them? Go ahead. I'll wait a minute.
I can't. I can't. That's what I'm saying. That's why I asked you if you knew, because I can't. I can't advance the live chat and go back and look. So anyway, what do you got for us tonight?
In 1974, I was a ninth grader.
Okay.
And I was in high school at a high school called Sequoia High School in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was in high school as a ninth grader. And I made varsity on the wrestling team as a ninth grader. That's crazy, isn't it?
And then you went on to become a scholarship wrestler at Oklahoma State. Is that the connection here?
I really could have went to the Olympics, but I went into the Air Force instead, and I became the club manager in Tokyo.
And then you got a job with...
Somehow this relates to the Miami game.
Oh, I thought
a cross thread here somewhere.
Did you wrestle in a big bowl of Cheez-It? Did you wrestle in a big bowl of Cheez-Its? Is that what the connection is?
Mark.
You're upset.
I feel like I'm carrying the pain of the whole Miami fan base, and I'm a Gator. I just can't believe what I just witnessed. I can't believe it. What a shame. Nothing against Oklahoma State. I'm just saying, Miami can't catch a football, right? It's just out of the question. You know, we're not going to catch one pass in the whole game. You know.
Yeah, they're going to have to play a little flag football in the spring and just pitch and catch and practice that.
Exactly. I'm hurt. The season's over for them. That's how it ends. I'm so hurt.
Well, you know, the only thing, the good that came out of this, George, would be, although it was a difficult call for me to make, I did pick Oklahoma State to win the game. And then I also did pick, I also did pick Miami to go 8-3 before the season started. I picked Miami to go 8-3, so. But I thought.
That's a big deal, but that's a good deal, but we got to grade that against every other pick you made and see how that percentage balances out.
Yeah, we don't need to do that.
8-3 for the year on your big picks, or 9-2, or 6-5, or what's?
Well, I picked Florida to go. I picked Florida to go 7-3, and they went 8-2 in the regular season. So there you go.
I could have told you that already. Should have asked me.
I do think that we've got folks here watching us tonight that would like us to talk about Miami and Oklahoma State. So what else you got for us, George?
Okay, let's talk about Miami and Oklahoma State. I'm moving in the next 2 or 3 days, Mark. I'm putting all my shit in my car and driving to Sarasota, Florida.
Whoa.
I live in Portland, Oregon.
Good
it's
Lord.
Like a 3,000-mile trip, right?
Yeah.
I am the luckiest man in the world. I'm 60 years old, right? I told my kids I got 3 or 4 grown boys that live near me. When I leave, they're going to come over and clean out my apartment and make sure I get my goddamn deposit back. Isn't that great?
And again, this has what to do with Oklahoma State and Miami? I'm going to talk to some.
Yes.
We're going to talk to some.
And all honesty, somebody needs to say congratulations to Oklahoma State. That's a finely coached football team. They deserve the win. I've been making jokes about Miami, but in all honesty, today is the day to say Oklahoma State has a good football team. And you picked them, so you already know.
Thank you, George. I'm going to take some of these calls. Have a good night. Always appreciated.
All right. Next time I call you, I'll be in Florida. Bye.
Press 1 to start the call, or 2 to decline. The call will start at the beep.
So, George, even though I just kicked you off the phone, it's to take other calls. I want you to know that we're all wishing you the safe and best trip, economic trip, safe trip from Oregon to Florida. So safe travels, George. Keep in touch. Let us know how you're doing on the trip. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
What's going on, Mark?
Yeah, can you turn down the audio in the background? We can't hear much of anything.
I'm watching a video at 9. That's the reason why. All right, I'm muting it. I just wanted to call and say, what do you think what happened if Chuba was on the field, Genesis was on the field. Let's go ahead and say Derek King was still on the field. Will Miami still lose? With Oklahoma State's wide receivers still on the field?
I think that they're two very evenly matched teams. I picked Oklahoma State to win the game. I wasn't extremely confident about it, but I picked them to win the game. I thought they would win the game, but it would not have surprised me had the outcome been different by any stretch. I think Miami blew the game more than Oklahoma State won the game. I think Miami had a muffed punt that was huge. They had a fumble at a mesh point that Oklahoma State had nothing to do with that. Their defense didn't force that fumble. And then, of course, they dropped about 84 passes. So I think Miami came out flat and unprepared early. That's the coaching staff's fault. And I think that Miami outplayed Oklahoma State from about early second quarter until about early fourth quarter. That Miami outplayed them for a good 2.5 quarters in the middle of the game.
Right. So my biggest disappointment was a 21-0. How do you explain 21-0 start? I mean, I get it's flat, but how do you explain that?
Well, I misspoke when I said flat. I'm not saying that the athletes were flat, unemotional, didn't want to play. I don't know. They looked like they were trying just to start as Oklahoma State. I think that that's more on coaching preparedness, that the Oklahoma State coaching staff did a better job of game planning than Miami did when they hit the field.
Okay. And then finally, do you see any development under this many head coaching staff?
That's a great question because there's definitely an improvement in the team, but you've got a much better quarterback than you did last year. You have a kicker who's going to make the kicks that need to be made, and you lost games because you couldn't make field goals last year, and your kicker is one of the best in the country. So that's not coaching. That's just you got a couple transfers in that are much better than the guys that they replaced.
Right. That's my point. Is that development or is that transfers?
Those are transfers. That has nothing to do with it. And I don't think that Derek King is really.
You and your wisdom, can you see development in our staff that can make it happen to our positions? Each and every single one of our positions is their development that is transported to the NFL, and it's made an impact there.
Rhett Lashley.
By recruiting all the I mean maybe now, but ever since my Manny Diaz has taken over, is there any development that has happened?
In the secondary, no. At the linebacker position, no. The only position that I think is become adequate that used to be horrible is the offensive line. It's still not good, but it's adequate.
Where did Diaz come from?
Well, he's a defensive coach.
Okay.
And you hired a good offensive coordinator. That's not development. That's just you made a decent hire.
I agree 100% with you on that. I even told my wife, watch Perry still do good in this offense.
Yeah. Because
they're good offense. But where's the development of these 5-star, 4-star, even 3-star recruits? Where is it?
It's a great question.
Maybe I'm being too picky. Maybe I've been a Miami fan for so long. And I love Miami. I'm a diehard King fan. But it's painful to watch 21-0 start and then see all our hyped up players that come to the youth and play like this and drop balls like this and contest balls like this and whatever else you can put on the blank spot.
Yeah, when you throw the football 30, 35, 40 times a game, a couple guys are going to drop passes, maybe two. Two is probably reasonable. 2 to 3 drops per game. But when you start dropping 7 and 8 and 9 passes in a game, and especially when about 3 of them would have been like game-changing plays, 40, 45-yard completions. You just can't have that.
I agree. Thanks, Mark. I
Hey.
appreciate it. I'm subscribe.
Appreciate the call. Have a good night.
Have a good one, bye.
Some good callers coming in tonight. And again, as you guys well know, I don't feel good about not being able to get the super chats in here. But I believe they came in from Ronan and Chugmo Beer. And if I'm not correctly acknowledging those, well, those guys have certainly given in the past. So they've done a great job. So I appreciate those so much. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
It's Dorn.
Hey, Dorn. How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. What's going on tonight? What's on your mind?
Hey, I'm real Canes fan, man. We headed in the right direction. Just that the drops kind of hurt us real bad, and like Mike Irvin said, we need our big time players to make big time plays. And if we get the young wide receivers in, that's gonna be big time. We'll be all right. But altogether, we're trending in the right direction.
Well, it's better than going 6-7 and losing a bowl game to Louisiana Tech and losing to Duke, Georgia Tech, and FIU during the regular season.
Yes, sir.
Really, the only game this season that was a huge disappointment was North Carolina. That was the major disappointment for me in this season. That game was a bit of an embarrassment.
Yeah, we got took behind the woodshed on that one. But altogether, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the way we're trending. We're bringing some young players, some young hungry players. I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay as long as you continue to play in the ACC Coastal Division and none of those other schools elevate their play. If Georgia Tech and Virginia Tech and Pitt all continue to be the same team that they've been, I think you're in good shape. You and North Carolina are going to fight it out for the division championship in the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that's true. But I think Barry played a great game tonight, which I mean it surprised me the way he played because he'd been buried in the depth charts and didn't know how he was going to respond. Just coming out, cold like this. Man, he played a hell of a game. Just some of these drops, man. Even after we were down by 21, big time players got to make big time plays.
Yeah, and you're not asking these guys to make one-handed acrobatic Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime type catches. These balls were on the numbers.
Yeah. Well, all right, Chief. I'm not going to hold you, man, but keep doing what you're doing, man, and that's okay. I'm looking forward to next year, man.
Thanks for the call, sir. Great to hear from you. Have a good night.
Yeah.
All right. 132 on the line. We're up to about 170. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. So we appreciate everybody being here. I am going to be on a late night tonight on the main channel after this Texas-Colorado game. I'm going to take that in. I know that it's on right now, but I got it on DVR. I'm going to review the game, go through it. Texas on top here, I believe 14-zip. And we'll be on about midnight. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
The man that gives college football its voice, Mark Rogers. Hi, and how are you, sir?
Hey, David. I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Quick comment before I get to the Miami-Oklahoma State game. I just have to say this. So last night, about 6 o'clock, I turned in to watch the Ohio State-Clemson preview on Mark Rogers TV.
Yeah.
And I turn it on, and I see 3 Clemson analysts, but I see 0 Buckeye analysts. Just curious about that one, Mark.
What do you call me? I can fill in as a Buckeye analyst. No, you're exactly right, David. Because I, in that situation, want to play host. Whether that's I tried to put together one for Alabama Notre Dame, but was not able to do so. Just didn't get people to match up times, and of course, in that situation, I'm going to play host and moderator and interject my opinions and so forth. But I'm basically going to get the Alabama side and the Notre Dame side. So I had the same approach in this one, but I can only make so many asks. I can't stick guns to people's head to come on.
I hear you, Mark. I'm going to give you my number. You should have gotten a hold of me, man.
I got a hold of you. To be fair, Pat Murphy of Bucknuts was supposed to come on, and for some reason there was an issue when the link went to him, and he wasn't able to come on.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'd have been there to help you. I'd have had your back, Mark. If you needed Buckeye analysis, I'm your guy.
Okay.
Just saying. Future reference.
Okay.
On to this game. I just have to say this. Watched basically caught the fourth quarter, the tail end of it. And I'll say this. I thought Miami was and I said this to you earlier in the year after Miami game. I thought Miami was heading in the right direction with Manny Diaz as their coach. And I don't know how you feel, Mark, and maybe kind of like the big loss to North Carolina and losing this game kind of gives me a little bit of pause, just for the simple fact that eventually you have to step up and get a couple quality victories, or not at least a few top 20 victories. Like, for me to kind of like see some food on my plate and get a sense that a program's heading in the right direction. Is that your general feel, and is that the general feel you're hearing from Miami fans? Just curious.
My general feel for this program and where this team's headed has not changed in the last 4 hours. I didn't see anything egregious one way or the other, positive or negative, against Oklahoma State. Miami lost the game. I expected them to lose the game. I wasn't ironclad sure that they would lose the game. I thought it'd be a close game. It was a close game. I picked Oklahoma State to win, cover 1.5. That's what they did. I think the personnel losses before the De'Ara King injury, I felt as though the personnel losses on both sides were pretty even. Miami lost two tremendous all-ACC defensive ends. Oklahoma State lost Chuba Hubbard, one of the best running backs in college football. And they lost two other players that I don't know who missed the game, because I only heard it early in the game mentioned that 3 Oklahoma State players had opted out, and I didn't look in to see who that would be, because Tylan Wallace was supposed to opt out, but he played. Interestingly enough, he played the first half. He caught 5 or 6 passes, and then he decided, it was confirmed during the broadcast, he decided not to play in the second half.
You know what, Mark? I just have to say, first of all, I think we talked about this games that I was thinking about playing, because I saw the 2.5 point line, and I was thinking, well, I guess actually Oklahoma State just covered at the 2.5, but it was just borderline for me, and obviously it ended up being borderline, because my concern is once Hubbard was out for Oklahoma State, that was, kind of what pushed me back the other direction. I hear what you're saying about Miami being up without the defensive players and the defensive linemen, but Hubbard is just such a difference maker that held me back from picking Oklahoma State. And Hubbard been playing, I definitely would have played Oklahoma State. Now, Hubbard been playing, they might have won that game, maybe a little bit more decisively. But you never know. I will say this, though. But by the way, Mark, what is your overall feeling about these players sitting out? I've never quite heard your exact opinion on it. Do you think that's, because I heard the pigskin peak of his analysis on your show earlier in the week. He had said that he felt that these players are basically quitting in no uncertain terms. And I got to be honest with you on that one. I'm kind of close to where Pigskin Pete's opinion is. What's yours?
So, on the level of the agreement that you make as a teammate and being a good teammate, yeah, I don't think there's any question that they're quitting on their teammates. That these guys nowadays, and we see it so much on social media, talk about them being brothers, and we've got a brotherhood. I believe I'm not making fun of it, but it has to, of course, you have to deliver when the chips are down, and the chips are down when you're expected to play with your brothers and compete with them on the final game of the season. So I think they are quitting on their teammates, number one. I understand the decision. They have the power to make that decision, so I understand it. They don't want to get hurt, and they want to prepare for the NFL draft. I think that's completely under the guidelines, of which there are few, if any. I think it's like when a kid acts out in public and people think it's horrible what the kid's doing. No, I point at the parent. So they're allowed to make these decisions. I think that beyond just the integrity or the character issue of giving up on your team, I think from a contractual standpoint, I would think that if they were held to the letter of the law of their scholarship, basically they're signing a contract saying that they are being given room and board and a free education in exchange for their athletic services, so that they show up at the meetings, they show up at the film room, they show up at practice, and they show up at games unless they are injured. Therefore, they are reneging on a contract that they've signed with the university.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I mentioned this to you before. It seemed like in the BCS era, and that there were a lot less of these, opt-outs, players just sitting. And, obviously, I think this is, a lot of these players looking at, well, if we're not in the playoff, I mean, why, should I risk my future, NFL career? And to a great degree, I understand where they're coming from. I mean, their body, and somebody used this term once, their body is their commodity in a lot of ways. But at the same time, what one has the right to do doesn't mean that it's necessarily the right thing to do. And there's, people have a right to do a lot of things. Doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. But, I mean, I get why they do it, and I understand it. But it don't necessarily mean that I always agree with it. Hey, last couple things real quick, Mark. Any Buckeye talk tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll be on the line at 2 o'clock Eastern time.
Okay. Hey, the last thing for Miami fans, too. If you want to turn into BTN Network, they're replaying the last time Miami football was good. Ohio State, Miami, 03 Fiesta Bowl. I believe Ohio State won the national championship that night. Go Buckeyes!
Did you have to do that to me, Dave?
I'm sorry. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Dave. All right. Let's not dive into that topic. We'll stay in 2020. Appreciate everyone on the line. I will get through any other comments directed toward me. On the topic of whether Miami's headed in the right direction and whether they have made significant strides this year. Okay, on the surface, 6-7, 8-3, losing to Georgia Tech and FIU and Duke, and a bowl game against Louisiana Tech, versus losing to good opponents, a great opponent in Clemson, and the North Carolina game was an embarrassment, but competing tonight against a top 20 team. Okay, that's a decided improvement. But I don't know if that's because the program has been developed and players have been developed, going back to a couple phone callers ago, versus just benefiting from having Rhett Lashley in place of Dan Enos, having De'Ara King in place of Jaron Williams and N'Kosi Perry, and having a field goal kicker who's going to make the kicks. It may simply just be that the players aren't being developed any better, that the team's really not better, the program's really not better, but you've got a kicker, a quarterback, and an offensive coordinator who know what they're doing and who are talented and skilled in those three roles, and that's the difference simply between this year and last year. That could be the case. 2021 will tell us a whole lot, of course. All right, folks, appreciate everybody stopping by. We will be on after the Texas-Colorado game on the main channel, so about midnight Eastern time after Texas-Colorado. It looks like the Buffaloes are ready to score and make this ball game with 8 minutes left in the first half. Could be 14-7 here soon. We will see second and goal for Colorado at the 3. Great to have everybody on here again. whoever contributed, I believe Ronan and Chuck Mo Beer on the Super Chats. Thank you so much. This channel will continue after I take this last phone call. This channel will continue and will thrive based on two things. Of course, me providing content that's quality, but also we need your individual contributions. And if you have a contact to a sponsor, please contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Again, if you know of a sponsor who may benefit from sponsorship here, contact me at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Who's on the line?
Mark, what's up, bro? Teddy.
Hey, man, what's going on?
You know, just another disappointing year.
Well, what did you expect out of this year? Yeah?
Robin?
What did you expect out of this year?
I expected to finish 9-2, not 8-3.
Okay.
And I expected to be competitive against North Carolina. We were far from that.
Sure.
I knew we were going to get destroyed by Clemson. Fine. That's great. But my God, man, these kids look like they regressed as the season. Like after Clemson, it was just regression city. Bolden wasn't the same guy anymore. Hall was lost. Frierson was lost. Our receivers, a lot has been said about our receivers tonight. They should be on the practice squad next year. And if there's no wholesale changes on defense, like, fire Manny now. Like, this is ridiculous, man. This is ridiculous. Like, whatever. That's the life of a King fan, I guess. Nothing but disappointment.
Well, you know, Manny's not going to get fired after going 8-3.
No, I know. I'm just being a little irrational right now.
Sure.
Just the frustration.
Yep.
Frustration, Mark, is just overwhelming.
Yeah. So I made a statement right at the time that you called that I certainly have my opinion, but as I slice it, and people are asking about the program improving and there being development of players, I don't know if this improvement this year is just a case of having a better quarterback, better kicker, and an offensive coordinator who's better.
I mean, Mark, like, we honestly just won 2 more games than last year, you know? And it's from top to bottom, man. Top to bottom. These coaches, you know, they don't develop these players. They look lost on the field. They can't catch. You know, a lot of credit to Perry, man. Perry, you know, he did excellent today. I don't care what anybody says about Perry. He deserves a ton of credit tonight for stepping in after King. But these, you know, I'm going to put blame on players too, man. It's like, it's about time. I know there's people that don't criticize players, but my guy, when you're dropping 10 passes, like, when can we start talking about you, about your performance, about your effort? There was zero effort, man. It only until like the last 5 minutes of the game, we started showing, you know, that there's effort, you know, heart, and then the drop sheets happened. Like, literally, Pope cost us a comeback. If he would have just caught that ball, it's frustrating, Mark. It really is. It really is. 3 straight bowl losses. You know, this is the progress. The progress is we start good, we tank down the middle, we do good towards the end, and then we just finish off like really bad. You know, 3-game losing streaks, 2-game losing streaks. That's what we are. We plateaued, and you know we just win 7, 8, 9 games a year and lose bowl games and end the season with 3 or 2 straight losses. That's what we are. That's what we are as a program.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. I think you played a team tonight that I was interested to see you play, just like I was interested to see the North Carolina game, because I thought that those were the 2 opponents that were on your level this year. And you know, at least the team showed up, had to rush in N'Kosi Perry in place of D'Eriq King, so you lose one of the top 10 or so quarterbacks in the nation, and you still rebound and cut into a 21-0 lead and almost win the game, versus the North Carolina game, which was an embarrassment.
Yeah, complete embarrassment, man. But you know what's probably the worst part about it, Mark? Our players right now are probably in the locker room, or on the bus, on the Twitter and on the gram, posting highlights, man. That's probably what they're doing. They've been doing that ever since they got here. Every time a loss, they'll post highlights after a loss, man. But anyways, I'm out. Thanks, Mark. Have a good night, bro.
Appreciate the call. You too, man. Thank you so much. Good call right there. Appreciate everybody jumping on the line. Heard from a lot of guys, folks that I have not heard from before. But please lock it in here. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We will continue to talk Miami football through the off season. We don't stop here. So there is no off season. We're here 24/7, 365. So we'll continue to produce the content and to analyze what just happened in 2020 and look forward to 2021. Spring practice, we'll review positions and knock it out. Knock it out for you as much as possible. So if you have any requests for content, please let me know. MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. Don't leave it in the chat because that'll be gone. But MarkRogersTV@gmail.com if you have any requests for content on Miami or anyone else. Thanks for jumping on. We'll be on late night tonight, midnight Eastern time on the main channel following the Texas-Colorado game. Right here, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.